All right, guys, we are like 2 days away from Shadow of the Erdtree launching, and I know a lot of you are just as hyped and excited as I am. This is a very, very big DLC that a lot of us are looking forward to. Unfortunately, they only gave a lot of the test keys to some of the industry insiders, which is pretty much par for the course, as we'll see for a minute. That being said, there's been a lot of interesting conversation around this game in the last few weeks, especially given the state of the AAA video game industry. People like the director of Elden Ring, Hidetaka Miyazaki, came out and said that he would not allow layoffs at From Software as long as he's in charge, which is very different from what you see in a lot of the mainstream AAA gaming industry, where it's pretty cutthroat, to be honest. A lot of these people, there's no loyalty, there's not the money that they once had to keep their staff fully, working, and it's unfortunate because a lot of good people lose their jobs in the process. But apparently he says that won't happen as long as he's there, and if they keep putting out bangers like Elden Ring, I don't think From Software is going to have any problem whatsoever. So now today we have a new article, a new review from Kotaku. Now, I want to start off by saying this is archived, guys, so don't worry. We're not giving them any clicks or ad revenue, so don't worry about that. Furthermore, this article is written by Alyssa Mercante, and we'll get into that in a second. But in the article, she, of course, does her lamentations of how miserable she is at Souls games and how terrible they are and how much she just gives up on them. Much like people over at The Gamer, Jade King, talking about how Elden Ring now has an easy mode and it actually works, talking about ways that you can cheese the game, I assume. But on this article, Alyssa decided to go all out in the first few paragraphs, talking about how basically this game, this DLC, parallels her life in the last 4 months. Talking about how there's a harassment campaign against her and how every day that she has to go to work, it's like walking through a boss door over and over again just to get slapped in the face. And then, of course, she goes on talking about how amazing the game is, even though she clearly sucks at these games. And we'll get into all of her history in a minute of how much of a video game journalist and expert she really is. So Veridark is the first one that kind of pointed this out this morning. Veridark, the YouTuber who was supposed to fight Alyssa Mercante when Miss Mercante decided she was going to challenge people and say, come fight me in person. So Vera tweeted out this morning, Alyssa Mercante reviewed Shadow of the Erdtree. Simply writing a review? No. Let's put commentary in there that has nothing to do with the game and establishes she's always the victim. She claims she's the victim of a near-endless harassment campaign when she's on social media, threatening to beat people up for not agreeing with her. It's never, hey, I said stupid controversial things people disagree with, now I'm facing backlash. It's always people are being sexist and homophobic. Now, we'll go into this a little bit about, the way that Alyssa is portraying individual people and the criticism she's been facing overall.
Hours into playing Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, the massive singular expansion for From Software's award-winning 2022 action RPG, I realize it's paralleling my real life. Until Elden Ring, I avoided Souls-likes. Their punishing difficulty and rigid boundaries frustrated me immensely. I hit a wall in Dark Souls Remastered and gave up, barely touched Bloodborne, and avoided Sekiro like it was a poison swamp. In the real world, I have mostly avoided the ire of homophobes and misogynists in the games industry, writing an article that temporarily shakes them up before fading into relative obscurity once Reddit refreshes. But now I am willingly subjecting myself to arduous adventure, running headfirst into a proverbial wall just to shake it off, back up, and run into it again. Outside of the land between in the Shadow Realm, I have spent nearly 4 months as the subject of a near-endless harassment campaign. It feels at times like logging on for a day of work is akin to walking through a boss door over and over again. Before I even make that connection between my real world and FromSoft's game world, I subconsciously attack Shadow of the Erdtree with dogged determination, as if besting a boss would bleed into my everyday and imbue me with a higher tier of self-confidence. Much like how it feels to receive near endless hate comments from anonymous accounts or angry middle-aged men, I faced Shadow of the Erdtree entirely alone. No multiplayer summons would work for me in the early access, a feature I relied on in the base game. So I faced it solo, and after almost 20 hours, came out, as Renala says, born and...
So these are the ramblings of a psychotic cat mom who basically has decided she's going to make it her mission to attack gamers and basically try to drive them out of the games industry and, try to drive them out as customers, essentially, because what they're trying to do is replace the customer base traditionally for a lot of these games, which is, the stereotypical, the fat basement dweller, 30-year-old guy living in his mom's basement playing video games. And I know that that's a stereotype. I know most of us have jobs and we have our own places we live and stuff, but that's always been the stereotype, is just the nerdy white guy, And to be honest, there's nothing wrong with that. It just is what it is. But here we have Alyssa intentionally provoking the fire that she's been stoking for months now, ever since she decided to utter the words that Sweet Baby Inc. doesn't do what you think it does. And here we are today. So of course Smash JT, who she DM'd the wife of, is saying, "I feel so bad for Alyssa from having a lunatic contact her significant other, people cheering on having her website taken down, those same people constantly threaten lawsuits and provoke followers to contact her place of work. It really is near endless. Oh wait." And then of course you have to reflect on the fact that it was him that had that happen to him and not her. Of course, being spearheaded partially by Alyssa Mercante. But then you got these guys like Jake Steinberg, another one of these games journalists who has been shilling for her for months, saying, "Gamers complaining about this review are so freaking soft. Literally anyone could have hopped on a computer and clicked 2,000 words about how that game everyone liked is still good for reasons you already suspect, but the author here has the nerve to have a perspective. Y'all do not know what criticism is. I don't know if it was YouTubers who broke your brain or what, but if you want what you consider to be a default perspective validating a purchase you have already made, just go literally anywhere else." That always works well, telling your customers or your readers to go somewhere else, right? A writing mentor once told me that any artistic criticism should be as specific and precise as the object you are criticizing. I think YouTubers have popularized shoot the shit talky style reviews, and people bought in and think that that is criticism. It's not, it's a reaction. You know why YouTubers do review discussions, right? Because it's easy. It requires little to no prep, and if you do it live, you don't even have to edit a video. You can just move on to the next piece of content you've got to churn out. LMAO. Yeah, well, these people, unfortunately, have lost the plot. Sure, it's easier to, sit and record a video for 10 minutes, but I still have to bring up a ton of research. I have to make sure I know what I'm talking about. I have to do all my fact-checking first. That takes a lot more time than if sitting and writing an article. I have done both. I have written articles for Fandom Pulse, and I have done videos myself. It takes the same amount of time for either one. The only difference is I wasn't getting paid over at Fandom Pulse. No shame. It's just, it was a website we were trying to get going, and it never became profitable. It is what it is. So, of course, you even have Vera Dark pointing out that Alyssa Mercante has unblocked her long enough to DM her after Vera made a video about this morning, saying, "When are you going to stop obsessing over me, girl? Just curious." Of course, Vera just completely stomped her, saying, "Whatever could you possibly mean? I'm simply doing my job, which is talking about the gaming industry and those within it. I don't know how covering angry misogynists in an article relates to the Elden Ring DLC, so I covered your article. I was thinking about taking a page out of your playbook and doing a review on Shadow of the Erdtree, where I talk about how I relate to the Tarnished because they breathe. If you just did your job and stopped writing about things that don't relate to games, maybe you wouldn't receive so much backlash. Gamers don't want to read about your narcissism." And of course, this is where I actually dug up some of her information on LinkedIn, which is public record, just so anybody who's watching is going to, run to defend Alyssa. This is all public information on her LinkedIn, okay? So I said, Alyssa Mercante, who got her GED in 2008, which no hate on the GEDs. That's how I got my diploma as well, as a GED. Is complaining about middle-aged men criticizing her while comparing Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree to her own life. She is at least in her mid-30s, and I say that because of the fact that she graduated high school in 2008. So if you do the math on that, that would put her about, 34, 35 years old now? So I don't know why she keeps going after middle-aged men. At least these middle-aged men have a wife and kids. What does she have? A person that she refers to in several tweets as her partner. Okay, whatever that means. Writing articles attacking the largest demographic of paying customers for video games, while she herself spent years writing about politics and pop culture before finally breaking into the gaming industry. Her words. She is a tourist and an activist. Anyone who goes out of their way to spin a victim narrative about themselves during a video game review is nothing more than a narcissistic hack. And of course, I brought up here on her LinkedIn her years of experience getting her master's degree in modern and contemporary literature over at Newcastle University in England, so clearly somebody else paid for her to go to school, to which she has only been a games journalist, editor at Kotaku, and over here at Games Radar since 2019, where she says she finally broke into the gaming industry as a staff writer at Games Radar Plus. So 5 years. Before that, she was doing all of her work writing on politics and pop culture and going to school for 12 years. All right? Then take a look at her dissertation. My degree, while focusing on contemporary literature, allowed me to direct my attention and research on queer theory, anti-normative modes of living, and social justice and human rights activism. I wrote my dissertation on queer approaches to modern independent video games to connect indie games to the queer punk movement of the 80s and 90s and to carve out a clear academic space for those who have been marginalized by the community, specifically women and queer individuals. My dissertation, entitled Goths, Punks, Queers, and Gamers, Identifying Subcultural and Queer Conventions in Contemporary Indie Games and Establishing a Queer Punk Indie Gaming Community, holy shit, received one of the 3 highest grades in my program, and cemented my receiving a degree with distinction. In the United Kingdom higher education system, a distinction is the highest honor possible and is equivalent to a 4.0 GPA at an American institution. Well, good for you, Alyssa. You got a degree that means nothing with a dissertation on a bunch of complete feminist BS. So this woman has always been an activist. She has always been an activist. She has always been pushing an agenda. She is not a gamer, as she admits as much in her article, in her review of Elden Ring Shadow of the Erdtree, complaining about how much she doesn't like Souls game and how difficult it was for her to even keep going. This person does not belong in the gaming industry. They do not belong in games journalism. It is an absolute travesty that Kotaku continues to employ these people and simply rely on hate clicks to get their articles read, which isn't even going to do much good for them in the future, because the more that people like us YouTubers and anybody on Twitter who's reading the articles uses the archive link rather than the actual link for Kotaku, Kotaku gains nothing from your review when you do that. So let's make sure we continue to use the archive. I know people have been hammering me about that in the YouTube comments. Stay vigilant, don't give these people any space, and I will catch you guys on the next one. Alright, and if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you for being here. I do have 2 channels, Minimal Effort Podcast, as well as my gaming channel. I do have a Twitch and Kick for my gaming channel. We do live streams over there occasionally, maybe once a week. And then if you are in the market for a new PC, make sure to check out Meta PCs. Click the link I have down below. Use code TBO at checkout for a special discount. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.